Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 5th meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If we could please have a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. The pledge of allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America,
to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation under
one
God.
nation, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. Ms. Austin,
Present.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Here.
Mr. Cater. Jim's here for sure.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He was. Mr. Collegian,
President.
Ms. Kearney,
Here.
Mr. Moore,
Here.
Mr. Mortimer,
Present.
Mr. Sadi,
Present.
Mr. Zaharidis,
Here.
and Chairman Quish.
I am here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for being here. And our first order of business is 57 Shell Ave Zone R75 petition of Codispodian Associates PC for a coastal area site plan review to construct a single family residence, map 27, block 444, parcel 9, of which Randy J. Silverman is the owner, closed by December 9th.
Right, Mr. Chair, we've been informed by the applicant that they would like to table this or postpone it till the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that will not require any vote. It's at their request.
Correct.
Okay. Next order of business is a public hearing, proposed regulation change 21-6, petition of the City of Milford for changes to Article 3, Section 363, accessory uses, closed by December 9th, vote by January 13th. David, if you would give us a little background on this, please.
Sure. In the DO zone, which is the design office district, we have the primary use in that zone are office buildings. And those office buildings can have accessory uses such as restaurants, health clubs, daycare centers. But the regulation is very specific in limiting access to those things to the occupants or the people who work in those office buildings. So what this proposed change would do is actually change the language to allow people who don't work there to utilize, if there's a health club or a restaurant or daycare, they could use it without working in the building.
Okay. So this is a public hearing. So I would open up the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this matter?
If you do, please raise your hand either electronically or wave in the camera, and I will recognize you. So is there anybody who would like to speak on this issue? I'm looking. I don't see anybody. I see no electronic hands going once. I see no electronic hands or anyone waving going twice. So, Mr. Chair, there doesn't appear to be anybody who would like to speak on this issue.
Okay, so then the public hearing is closed. Just as a little more background, there's circumstances where you have offices that in the past were traditional offices, but then they have like short use, like if you wanted to rent a conference room or you wanted to use a cubicle intermittently, becomes complicated with that person now or entity allowed to use the health club or the restaurant. So I think this zone change or language change would clarify that and also underpin the commercial property in the city to allow for expanded use and be able to monetize their property. So I think it's a good thing. Is there any member of the board that has anything they'd like to say?
Thank you, Mr. Quish. Mr. Sadi here. This is really a question for the record through you to Mr. Sulkus. Was this not heard recently by the regulation subcommittee and it was passed on to this board?
It most certainly was.
Okay, and then the question I have is, does it make a difference that when you use the term to petition the city, does it make a difference that it came from the regulation subcommittee to this board? Does it make a difference for purpose of either a motion or the record?
No, because if you recall, city staff identified the issue, we brought it to the subcommittee. So it doesn't, so in the end, whether it's the subcommittee or city staff, you're sort of the city. So that's why it's represented that way.
Thank you. No further questions, Mr. Quish.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further comment or questions from the board, I'd hear a motion.
I'll
Quish,
move it.
Mr. Castagnoli, did you
Castagnoli?
speak first?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I would move that we approve the petition of the city of Milford for changes to Article 3, Section 3.6.3, accessory uses.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have, Mr. Cater's not muted. I mean, he is
He's
muted.
You're still muted, Mr. Cater.
Who is the second?
I think Peggy, wasn't it Peggy?
Peggy, yeah,
Okay.
Jim Cater is still muted. Okay,
All right, I'm muted now. Can I say something, Jim? I
It's-
lost connection. I don't know what happened. Did you guys lose connection? Because I'm trying to reboot my laptop, but I'm on my phone now. So I missed the first 2 minutes. Which was this about? I didn't see which. Is this for the post mall?
no, we're not there yet, Jim, so I'll review it with you. The first item of business was Shell Avenue, and the applicant has asked to postpone that. The next order of business is a proposed regulation change that would allow accessory uses in the commercial buildings of 6.6.3 to allow non-occupants of the building to use the accessory uses.
Okay.
I have a question on a point of order. I assumed that Mr. Cater had been muted, whereas he hadn't heard that item. So is he an abstention?
No, we're going to refresh him on it.
Okay, so he can vote?
Yeah, as long as he feels like he's, read about it, or if he, I mean, he hasn't missed much actual explanation outside of David's sort of administrative summary, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Could David say one more time? I hate to be a pain in the neck, but could he just say one more time? I'm
No, that's
still
fine.
trying to reboot my laptop and it's giving me a little trouble here.
Sure.
No problem.
So basically, the public hearing for 21-6 involves a change in the DO zone involving accessory uses. Currently in the DO zone, which is design office, you have office buildings that have some accessory uses such as restaurants, health clubs, daycare centers. There could be other accessory uses. And the way the regulations are currently written, the only people who could really use those facilities are people who work in those buildings. So we identified that as an issue and staff recommended to the regulation subcommittee that that language should be changed to allow people from outside the office buildings to utilize it, to be able to go to utilize those facilities, if they choose.
Okay, I get it now. I'm thanks. I appreciate that, folks.
And just to let you know, no one spoke at the public hearing either for or against it.
Okay.
So we did close the public hearing. We have a motion to approve and a second. And now there's any time for discussion. So if anyone has any further questions or comments, then now's the time.
Patty here, does Mr. Castagnoli have to indicate an effective date through Mr. Quish to Mr. Suggs' effective date of the amendment if proposed, if accepted tonight?
Yes, just to let the board know, there is one recommended in your motions. I can
Okay.
tell you
Would
what that
Mr.
is.
Castagnoli accept an amendment to add the effective date of October 22nd of 21?
Yes,
Okay, and Peggy, your second is still good with that?
Yes.
Okay,
No further comments at this point by Sadi.
okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, Meg, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Austin,
With the,
Mr. Castagnoli,
yes,
Mr. Cater,
Yes.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
with the motion.
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
The motion,
Mr. Zaharides,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I am with the motion.
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Next order of business is 201 Kings Highway, Zone R75. Petition of Michael Iacono of Signature Pools, Inc. for a special permit for an in-ground pool within 25 feet of the mean high water at map 59, block 795, parcel 12, of which Heidi and Jay Dworkin are the owners. Closed by December 9th, vote by January 13. Yeah, the applicant has the floor. Is the applicant here with us?
Doesn't appear so. I can tell you what this is, Mr. Chair. It's actually very, very
Yeah,
simple.
no, if the applicant's not here, then it goes to the next meeting.
Okay,
Applicant has to be here to
Great.
represent themselves.
okay.
We'll keep it, can we keep it open until the meeting fully done in case they come
Yeah,
later?
you can table it to the next meeting.
Well, if they show up tonight, we can hear it. I'd like it to be that way if we can.
Either way, you can table it until the applicant either shows up tonight or at the next meeting.
Okay, without objection? Okay. Next order of business is 252, 262 Depot Road, Zone LI, petition of Michael Welsh, Revolution Milford LLC for a special exception for a basketball training facility at map 92, block 705, parcel 1E, of which MNBD LLC is the owner. And this was postponed from the last meeting, and it is closed by December 25th, vote by December 30th. David, if you would review the application.
Sure. The last time they came to you, there was some clarifications that they needed to make, which they had done. The applicant is proposing to put in a roughly 3,700 square foot basketball training gym at 252 Depot Road. The existing building and the rear building contain a mixture of warehouse, manufacturing, office, and industrial space. The property is large, and there's a fence that's proposed that'll be running between 252, which is where this application is, and 262, which is a large building next to it, effectively dividing the limited uses of the property to their respective sides of their fences. The applicant has updated the information submitted in accordance with the board meeting of 9/21/21. The sheet C-1 IM1, which was revised to September 24th. The parking table lists the total number of parking spaces at 104 for 252 Depot Road. The actual number of spaces is 108, is depicted on the newly submitted parking count sketch received by 10, which was received today. The floor plans for the main building don't show the square footage for each of the tenant spaces. This would be preferred so we can determine if the aggregate number of on the parking table is correct. This is also needed for the rear building, but this doesn't really affect this application at this point because based on the information that's there, clearly there is excess parking for the proposed use. A portion of the site is there's a corner of the site, the southeast corner of the property is designated for horticultural company overnight parking and is not included in the parking count. This clarification was made by the applicant so as not to give the impression that the spaces were available for Revolution basketball use. The applicant submitted an improved and compliant front landscape area plan, and they said that they would agree to the city engineer's requirements in his letters that were presented last week. So they pretty much gave us enough information for you to make a determination.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Castagnoli?
Yes, I believe last time we came to the conclusion that there wasn't a plan for all the uses, the parking for all uses there. So Dave, is there enough parking for all the proposed uses there?
Yes, according to the table that's there now, and
Right.
on the square footage and the aggregate as it's proposed,
Right.
there would be, and again, it's limited to the 252 side of the property. So that's all compliant.
That's compliant.
That's
Okay.
compliant.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Question, Mr. Sadi, through you to Mr. Sulkus, and following up on Mr. Castagnoli's excellent question, there was a discussion that we might have to make a finding of parking adequacy. Mr. Sulkus appears now we don't have to make that finding.
That is correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quish. Nothing further.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing. So at this point, I would open this up to the public. For anyone who would like to speak to the issue, either raise your hand electronically or just wave in front of the camera, and David Sulkus will be the gatekeeper.
Okay, raise your hand electronically if you'd like, or wave in the camera and you'll be acknowledged. Mr. Chair, I am scanning and I don't see anybody requesting to speak.
Okay. Then without objection, we will close the public hearing. If there are no further questions or comments from the board, then I would hear a motion.
The question, if I could make a motion, please, to approve as presented in reference to 252, 262 Depot Road, Zone L1. The petition of Michael Welsh, Revolution Milford LLC for a special exception for a basketball training facility at map 92, block 705, parcel 1E, of which MNDB LLC is the owner. 3 proposed conditions. All parking, striping shall be in compliance with sections 5.1, diagrams 1 and 2. Number 2, satisfying the requirements of the city engineer in his letters dated August 26th of 2021, requiring concrete curbs and aprons, and 252 and 262 being compliant with the city of Milford sewer connection standards. And the 3rd, submission of an updated parking table, accurately reflecting and or corroborating the parking table information on sheet C-IM1.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Castagnoli, is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Ms. Austin,
With the motion?
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion?
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion?
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer.
With the motion?
Mr. Sadi,
The motion?
Mr. Zaharidis,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I am also with the motion. Motion carries unanimously, and we wish them good luck with their basketball training. Next order of business is old business. It is a proposed regulation change 21-5 petition of John Nuff Esquire for changes to Article 3, Section 3.9, Shopping Center Design District, Article 5, Section 5.1, Parking and Loading Regulations, and Article 11, Section 11.2, other terms. Vote by December 17th. This was a public hearing, which is now closed. We kept this open only for board discussion or comments. So if the board would like to speak to this matter, now is our time.
Chairman Quish, if I may.
Yes,
Brian Collegian. I just want to state for the record that I have reviewed the video of the meeting that I missed the last meeting, and I'm prepared to vote on any motion that's presented tonight.
thank you.
Jim?
Yep, Mr. Cater.
Yeah, this is Jim Cater. I viewed the video as well, and I feel comfortable voting tonight as well.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to address this matter, or questions or comments
From the board.
from the board only? Yep,
Mr. Chairman,
yep.
I'm concerned because one of the issues is, do we want housing at this location? And also, do we want to allow Centennial to start something where they don't really know where they're going with it? And they just said that this is just kind of an opener, okay? And that, along with the fact that we're really, helping a business out here, which I don't know if that's the purview, if this board should be doing that, okay? So I feel, these issues, are stopping me from voting for this.
Oh, great, thank you. I appreciate your comment. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Mr.
Jim
Cater.
Cater. I'm kind of with Joe on that. I do feel for them. I do think something needs to be done there. I think should be a little more concerned about this. I don't think housing should be up there at all. I'm not quite sure what the answer it is. I could come up with ideas, but that's not our job to figure ideas. I think they should try to find another approach instead of what they're doing is keep tweaking the same idea until they get to a point where we agree with that. It's okay. They keep giving us bits and pieces. I just don't think housing should be up there. It's just my opinion. And also, and I do, and they brought up a couple of times, I do think this is very competitive with the downtown. I listened to what they said, and they said they want that to be a destination. Outside seating, restaurants, everything. It's like they're going to compete with our fragile downtown, which is just right now starting to get a foothold and making a comeback. I think it's way more important. In my opinion, the mall 60 years ago ruined the downtown, and it's getting back, and they're going to do it again if we let this through. Now, they could think of something creative. There's a lot of ideas, but that's for them to figure out.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Yep,
You
Carl,
want-
please go.
You want to go, Nance?
Oh, go ahead, Carl. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree with Joe and Jim on this. It's really too open-ended for me. Just knowing that they want to build housing there, the height of the housing they're talking about, and the fact that they wanted to extract or tear down portions of the mall. I didn't feel comfortable with that. So that's my take on it.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
housing is allowed there as it is. I mean, that's not a change. We're only talking parking. What is the material change that they're looking at here? I don't really see anything too I don't know, too scary here. So maybe you can explain a little bit more exactly what this change is. David, maybe?
God,
Little help with
the
that.
size of the housing.
The
All
main, the main
Right.
difference, the main difference here is housing. Housing is currently allowed. It's an allowable use. It's always been an allowable use. The form of the housing they're asking for to be different, because for whatever reason, the current regulation ties the housing to the RMF 16 regulations, which basically makes it a two-story single or duplex house. So you could have a bunch of those on the property. So envision the parking lot being filled with duplexes. That's what the regulation allows, for better or for worse. So the change that they're asking for is to allow mixed use housing. So it could be in the same building with commercial. And then they're asking for an actual height reduction, because currently in that zone, you could have buildings that go up to 120 feet in height. So this proposal would limit the height to 85 feet for that mixed use building. So that's change number one. Change number two is to change the minimum lot size for the mall to 4 acres. So that way they can effectively subdivide it, but it would still operate as one entity. For instance, Target has been subdivided off the property. It's its own entity. Again, you wouldn't know it because it functions as part of what's there. Then the next change that was proposed was how parking was calculated for the mall. Instead of it being gross square feet as it is now, it's limited now to the areas of the mall that will actually house either the retail use or the sales use or the warehouse use, whatever that is, not the gross use. Because right now they're parking for all of their hallways and everything else where there's really no use, quote unquote. And in a nutshell, that's what they're asking for. There's actually no, and they're adding other uses based on the input from last year's application and public hearing, and the informal meeting they had, which was with the POCD subcommittee, and public input, where people wanted them to consider other uses. They added those uses. So again, all they're doing is asking for a change in the rules. So whatever the rules are, they would know what the rules of the game are. That way they can then develop an application, because there's no application here other than the regulation change. They're not saying they're going to build this or they're going to build that. It's just like every other zoning regulation in the city. Every zone in the city has regulations, and if it needs board approval, they're going to come in with an application that you are going to scrutinize through the eyes of those regulations. And I think it's problematic to say, oh, this just benefits this property owner. Well, there are 3 other property owners in this zone. And this evening you made a change to the DO zone regulations, which basically benefit 1 or 2 property owners. It's the rules of the game. All they're asking for is a change to the regulations so they know what they can then develop to bring to you. And at that point, if you don't like what they're going to bring to you as developed by the regulations, then you don't have to approve it. But they're just asking for the regulation so they can bring that application to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and it seems that they're trying to implement something along the lines of what we suggested anyway. So, all right.
Okay,
Thank you for the explanation.
thank you, John. Peggy?
After listening to them for this like 4 or 5 times already, I look back and think I would really prefer, I would have preferred that we stayed with the original. And I know why I voted it down, because the first time they came before us, they really didn't have a plan for the future, even if it's just a plan. But I don't mind apartments there, but I don't want them where they are now. I would have preferred them at the original spot that they chose, which was in the back of the parking lot. And I'm not sure whether they could think of a way to make that mall or that square thing or whatever they're calling it, the thing that goes between the buildings and people are going to have art shows and all that stuff, how they could do that, but still have the apartments in the back. Because I would really like to see Sears not torn down. I would like to find a tenant. I would like this, hopefully the city could help find a tenant, a big tenant, a tenant that would bring jobs, an Amazon or a Google or a biotech company or somebody a big company. I think a major push should be put on to find a tenant for that part, and then let them build their apartments in the back. That's just my opinion.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate everybody's comments, and I think we're all on the same page, but they don't have a Google or a Amazon to come in and to say, okay, well, apartments in the back, apartments here, tear down this, change that. That's not where we're looking at. We're looking at a regulation change. They don't have a solid plan to come before us. I think it's time to move on and vote on this. Like, we have dragged this out for weeks, and it's time for us to, we're here for regulations changes. Whatever their grand plan is, whatever it is down the road, the task in front of us right now is a regulations change, and that is it.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I have to agree with Nancy 100%. I think we really are dragging this out, and it's all preliminary. We could talk to them and say, put those apartments in back. We'd rather have it that way. I mean, we're still very preliminary. So I think we should definitely vote on this tonight.
And I agree that we should have voted on this tonight, but the applicant did come with us with an extensive presentation. So and I think us as a board, we do have a right to respond to what they presented to us. And when they come to us with suggestions of what they might do, we should act upon that and discuss those type of things. And I don't think we should just talk about the regulations. We should talk about what is their grand plan. And that's my opinion.
I don't disagree with that, but all I'm saying is they have discussed it. We cannot vote now on something that could happen in the future. This is a regulations change, because they can come before, if we change the regulations, they can come, we can decide yes or no, but like, they don't have that. And I understand the vision, and I'm not saying I disagree with their vision by no stretch, but I get it. I understand it. I've worked in towns where they've done this, but all I'm saying is we have before us right now a regulations change, and that's what we have to vote on. We don't have to vote on the visionary that here or there, whatever. And that's all I'm saying is we need to make a decision. Either we're going to change this regulation or we're not. That's all I'm saying. And Carl, I mean no disrespect whatsoever. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody on the board, but all I'm saying is this is the regulation change. So either we pass this or we don't pass this. That's all I'm saying.
Anyone else?
Yeah, me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hear everybody makes valid points, and I agree with you, Nancy. I do think we should vote tonight. My concern, though, is, let me just ask hypothetical, if we don't change the zone what's the likelihood a project this magnitude of 300 units would go in there? I kind of think, I doubt it would happen. Now, they can build houses, but if that was the case, they would be doing it now. So I just am afraid that we're gonna change the zoning rule regulation and allow things in there. I know you say that if they come up with a project we don't like, but if they're following the zoning laws, I don't really think there's a lot we can do about it. It's like a house. If someone builds a house, if they're within the borders, they're following all the rules, we really have to stamp it. So it's not that we can later down the road decide, no, we don't like this project. You know, if they're following the regulations and we're setting the regulations now for them, I don't know what their thought process is. And, you know, so I do want to vote for it. I'm prepared to vote for it. I'm a little nervous that changing the zone will allow things in that we're not thinking of. So we do have to think down the road. What potentially somebody going to come in? Are we going to open it up and they can do anything they want? We can't stop something if they're following the regulations.
Well,
Agreed.
okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Joe,
Agreed,
Mr.
Jim.
Chairman.
They do go together. You can't make a plan without a regulation change.
Exactly.
So they can't do their plan if we don't make the regulation change. So they do go together.
What happens if their vision changes? Do they
That's what-
change?
That's the
they
problem.
change the regulations? Okay,
yeah, I mean, you know, again, that's possible, right? Sure.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, why don't we have a complete vision and then a complete regulation change proposal before us? Okay, we don't.
Understood.
Agreed.
So certain things people are worried about, what could come down the line. What the language is now is that there's a maximum of 300 units throughout the entire district, which incorporates the Stop and Shop and the other, Walmart. Yeah. So that's one thing we know. They're not, if we do this now, they cannot build more than 300 units. And if they do build mixed use residential, which is the only way they'll be able to build residential, it has to be attached to the mall and it has to have a esplanade of 30,000 square feet. Whatever specifics are in there. So they can't change the whole thing. We might not like it, and that's fine, but there's not a whole lot down the road that is a maybe if. We would allow them to build an office tower with biotech. We would allow, with these regulation changes, these are the things that specifically would be allowed, to try to create that work, live, play concept that's pretty common in urban redevelopment. So there are, if you look at the language, it's, there are some parameters that they're not going to be able to go through. Also, we do have three choices. We can approve, we can deny, or we can change it. They might not like our changes. We could say you could only have 100 units, or we could do anything we wanted. I don't want to speculate or do, blue sky it too much, but there is, if there was a passion and a consensus for a passionate change in the language of this zone change, we totally have the right to do it. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying that those are our three options: approve, deny, or augment, or alter. So we do have a little bit of leeway, and I have no problem voting on this tonight. With everybody, I get the sense that we have gone down a long road on this, and I think we did it for a lot of the right reasons. I think we are stakeholders in this. The city of Milford is. It's a big property. It does somehow brand the city a little bit, and it's a gateway in a sense, and it will have impact on other neighborhoods, as Mr. Cater is concerned about. I'm not sure it would be a detriment, but he's convinced it is, and I'm not going to argue that point with him, because it's a difference of opinion. There's no crystal ball there, but so it is the case that if we deny this, we are still stakeholders in the mall, and it will be what it is. until something comes up. And I get it. If they came with a master plan and said, this is specifically what we want to do, and here's how we're going to do it, and we have biotech people on board, we have, you know, all these restaurants that want to be part of a mixed use, and there's really a robust concept for us to embrace and to celebrate, then I'm sure it would be much easier for all of us to support it. We don't have that, and I get that people are reticent about supporting it. I think that just my common sense is telling me that they want what's the highest and best use for that property for themselves and for the city of Milford. If it doesn't work for the city of Milford, it's not going to work for them. And I think that that the protections that are in there with a limited number of housing, they offered up some workforce housing. You know, there could be build half the units and then build the same square footage in an office park and get a biotech tenant in there, or I use biotech as a whoever, before you build the second phase of the residential. I mean, we could approve that language here tonight. I'm not saying we should. I don't think I particularly have a proposed motion that would address our concerns, but we do have options, and we are in. There's a certain symbiotic relationship between the city and the mall. We sort of flow together, we sing together. So I'm in favor of giving them a shot, and I don't think there's a huge downside. But I'm one vote. So that's my 2 cents. Anyone else care to contribute?
I just want to add that I guess, I mean, we can vote for or against, you know, like Chairman Quish was saying, but if we don't have mixed use, that I guess that means we're going to go with like a neighborhood style. If they put in housing, it'll be like a neighborhood style.
I think it's more like, John, I think it's more like garden apartments. I think they can go 3 stories. There's a 40-acre minimum, so they'd have to take it pretty much most of the parking lot, which I don't know how they do it with keeping the mall itself parked properly.
Right.
Within our limits, maybe some more parking garages or elevated, parking garages. I don't know what that would look like, you know, specifically. They might not get all 300, might get 180 or 200 or something, but I think what's permitted is 3 stories, kind of like what they call garden style.
Okay.
Is that accurate, Mr. Sulkus?
Yeah, it's again, the RMS 16 regulations. And again, they would have to be freestanding homes. They wouldn't be able to be mixed use. What they're asking for is the ability to have both.
But they
in the
wouldn't
same
be
building.
individual single-family freestanding, they'd be apartments buildings.
They wouldn't be apartment buildings.
But it's ours, okay.
Yeah, they'd be like, you had
Townhouses,
it correct. You had it correct when you said garden style apartments. That's
Yes, I did say.
basically townhouses. That's what you'd have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. And the other point I wanted to make is we're working with them pretty closely, and I think this board is pretty strongly committed to getting the right thing done. So I'm not afraid of moving forward and staying engaged. And I think that's the proper way to go. And that's just
Okay.
end of my 2 cents.
Any other?
Input from the public?
Done, sorry. This is for the board members only. We had public hearings 3 times.
And the public hearing is closed, so.
Yeah, that's right, but there's no more public comment. Any other comments from the board? One thing I would say is whatever motion we come up with, let's make it in the affirmative. Move to approve. You can change it, whatever language you want, whoever makes the motion. And if you don't like it, then vote against it. But we've had issues before where a vote was taken in the negative, like we vote to deny, and it didn't pass muster through the city attorney's office. So,
So you have a prepared motion in the affirmative. If you would like to use it, that's up to you.
okay. And again, if you felt like altering it in any way, whoever wants to make a motion, you can do that. At this point, if there's no other comments or discussion, then I would entertain a motion.
Okay, I guess I will put the motion out there. I don't see anything on the number of units. If we wanted to limit the units, the number of units, could we add some language there?
There is a
that-
limit already at 300.
At 300. I mean, I don't see anything in the literature tonight, so. So it seems that that's a big sticking point for people. If I'm correct in that assessment, I would say.
Matt, maybe I can help clarify. What's on the motion tonight incorporates the final proposal that they made for the change, which includes the 300.
Okay.
What you have are some proposed modifications to the original language that are there. So, there were.
Do we want to share that screen and everybody take a minute to
Absolutely.
just look at it?
Absolutely. Okay, you seeing the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so you have the original proposal, which is all of the text for the entire change, and then the proposed modifications based on that text. There was, changing a comma to make it a semicolon, little things like that, adding yards, front, rear, and side, because they had just said yards. We wanted to make it clear that it was front, rear, and side. Correcting a reference number. There was an incorrect reference number to make it a correct reference.
That's what I mean.
Changing the language here, except that multifamily dwellings shall not, so no building or structure shall exceed 10 stories in height, except that any building that contains multifamily dwellings shall not exceed 5 stories or 85 feet in height. The original language they had in there was different, and it wasn't clear. This makes it clear. We have here the proposal for having that multi-use park, that big open space. In their original proposal, it didn't have a size. So we're saying that should be a minimum 35,000 square feet, which is a good size. So there it is. It will not be less than 35,000 square feet. They offered by themselves to have to add 5% of the dwelling units will be affordable in conjunction and in accordance with the general statutes of 830G. So we would be getting extra points for the housing that would be there, up to 5%, and that's it. So
Okay. So if I wanted to limit that to say 200 units.
yeah, you would add that as a proposed modification.
Okay. All right. Well, then I would like to propose regulation change of John Nuff Esquire for changes to Article 3, Section 3.9, Shopping Center Design District, Article 5, Section 5.1, Parking and Loading Regulations, and Article 11, Section 11.2, other terms. Could you put that back up, David? Because I don't have
Sure.
that.
Yeah, I was trying to find the.
Oh, never mind. I got it.
Okay.
3.9.2.7, change the comma after eating places to a semicolon, i.e. eating places, semicolon. 3.9.4.1 and 3.9.4.2, add the following parentheses after the word yards in 4 yards, front, rear, side, principal uses. 5 yards, front, rear, side, accessory uses. 3.9.4.3, parentheses 1, change reference to 3.9.4.2, parentheses 4, to section 3.9.4.2. Also 3.9.4.3, parentheses 3, change, except that multifamily dwellings shall not, to except that any building that contains multifamily dwellings shall not. To read 3, height, no building or structure shall exceed 10 stories or 120 feet in height, except that any building that contains multifamily dwellings shall not exceed 5 stories or 85 feet in height. Also 3.9.4.2, parentheses 7, add the following to the second line. Open space of a minimum of 35,000 square feet shall be, to read 7, plaza area. When any multifamily dwelling units are proposed, meaningful contiguous space open to the public of not less than 35,000 square feet shall be provided at grade level, improved with suitable landscape and hardscape features, including but not limited to decorative plantings, benches, seating areas, play spaces, and public gathering areas. Also, 3.9.4.3, parentheses 11, no less than 5% of the dwelling units created shall be affordable housing as defined and in accordance with the Connecticut General Statute 8-30G, and also that the limit of the amount of the number of units shall be 200.
Thank you for all that work, John.
That was a big one.
Yes, it was. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Patty will second this to get to the vote, sir.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion prior to vote?
Yes, Mr. Quish, to the proponent, Mr. Mortimer, was it your motion to approve with conditions? I don't think you
Yes,
used the
Mr.
words at
Sadi.
the very beginning.
Yes, it was.
All right, so if we could just make sure that it's a motion to approve with conditions. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, is it conditions or modifications? Those would be modifications.
Say that again, David?
Those are proposed modifications. You can call them modifications. They're not necessarily, they're not conditions, but I mean, you can, I would
No, I think that's, let's get the language so it sticks. So modifications.
propose modifications. And if you,
Modifications it is.
yeah, and if you wanted to add any other modifications, you can as well.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. I guess anyone could, if they wanted to do further discussion and wanted us to consider further modifications, it would go through Mr. Mortimer for the motion and Mr. Sadi for the second to see if they were in alignment with those other additional modifications. Without, if there's further discussion, we'll hear it. If there's further modifications, we'll hear that. And if not, then we'll go to a vote. So it's up to the board at this point to let us know if we want to discuss it more, or we want to vote on it.
Vote.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, vote.
Okay. Okay, so we're ready. Okay, Megan, if we would call the roll.
Ms. Austin,
Against the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
No,
Mr. Cater,
No,
Mr. Collegian,
Against the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
For the motion.
Mr. Moore,
Against the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
For the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
Against the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis,
Against the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion.
Thank you.
So the motion fails. This matter is put to bed. Thank you all for the many hours of consideration. I do appreciate your thoughts. Okay. Next order of business is liaison reports. Seeing none. Subcommittee reports. We do have 2 meetings coming up tomorrow and the next night for the POCD. the city has put out a request for qualifications. We received 4. These are requests for qualifications for consultants for the plan of conservation and development. We received 4 responses. The POCD committee has chosen 2 to hear a presentation, 1 each night for tomorrow and Thursday. At what point we will we'll make a decision and share that with the board, and we'll start working together with the entire board, the POCD committee separately, and the public on getting what we hope to be a great plan of conservation and development for the city of Milford. The regulation subcommittee does not have a meeting set up at this point, but we will have one next month. Chair's report, nothing more than just thanking everybody for their patience with and attention to the proposed zone change for the mall property. And I mean, it seems to me we'll probably be hearing more. I mean, they need to do something. So it may be smart for them to let us hire a consultant and have a charrette at their expense and plan something together and plan it so that the board and the public sees a robust full master plan and propose that way, but they may not like that either. Anyway, that's my
Mr.
report.
Question before you go to staff, I have a question. Do we have, it's either the staff report or you, any word on education for the board? Any educational seminars? I know there were the changes we were talking about. We thought there might be some education coming up.
We'll leave that to the staff report. David.
Hi, I guess I have a staff report now. That requirement, I believe, doesn't take effect until next year. But having said that, we always make when it's available, education available to you. So the next time, and usually those education sessions are either run through UConn or the Connecticut Bar or Wesleyan in accord with working with the state. So the next time one of those comes up, I will let the board know. And even before the law takes effect, as always, and some members here have already done this, taken advantage of the educational opportunities when they present themselves.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further staff report?
None this evening.
Okay. Did we? No, we did not approve the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of 9/21?
A move.
Okay, without objection, they're approved. And I would again thank everyone else, and we are adjourned.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Take care all.
Go Yankees.
Go Red Sox.
Oh,